You were introduced to the add-on packager extractor in the previous demo. In this segment, we'll look at it in a bit more detail. The packager extractor's job is to make it easier to move an instance of add-on along with the Barista framework. It gives you the option to package an instance either with or without application data, and we'll look at that in more detail here in a minute. Given an archive created by the packager, the extractor installs it. You can copy-paste the archive on a different server or extract it to a different location on the same server, depending on your use case. For add-on upgrades, we use the packager extractor several times. We first bundle up an instance that we want to upgrade, then we extract and install it on a test server. We perform the upgrade on the test server, and when we're satisfied with the upgrade, having sanity tested it and maybe done some customizations, we then package that upgraded instance, leaving behind the data we've been using for testing, and extract it back on the production server, where we can get a fresh copy of data and go live with the upgrade. Beyond its use in the upgrade process, the packager extractor makes it much easier to set up test or development copies of a given add-on instance on the same or different server, or to just move an instance altogether if you're swapping out servers, maybe moving from ground to cloud or doing a server upgrade, that sort of thing. The packager extractor ships with add-on as of version 21. The packager extractor program handles the user interface and the main processing, and the tgz-util contains a couple of custom classes used by the packager extractor to manage the mechanics of archiving and extracting. Since it's a standalone utility, you don't need to sync anything into Barista or hook it up to a menu. It's easy to copy-paste the packager extractor directory to a server that's running an older version. To run it, you launch the demo version of add-on and use the custom program launcher found in the Barista Utilities menu. On the packager side, you have two options for specifying what goes into the archive. A production archive zips up Barista, add-on, and any verticals in the install location, but doesn't include things like application data and your document archive. As the name implies, a production package is most commonly used for the go-live phase of an upgrade, when you want to grab the newly upgraded and tested Barista add-on and move it over to a production server where you'll run it with the current production data. If, on the other hand, you want to archive a complete instance, data included, in preparation for starting an upgrade, creating a test or development environment, or moving to a different server for whatever reason, then choose the testing use option. Either option creates a detailed log of your runtime options, path names it comes across that will need to be changed when extracted, and a list of what's included in the archive. The log itself is also then added into the archive for use during the extraction. When it's time to extract a packaged instance, provide a new database name. Remember, each instance of Barista has its own database. A description and an install location, then browse to and select the archive to extract. In addition to extracting the actual files, the extractor will use the log to locate and alter path names in places like your .syn and Barista config files, attach to the new database, set up an SSCP and create stored procedure definitions, then place an entry for the instance in the Barista Installation Manager grid. If you extracted an archive that was created for testing use, the new instance should be ready to go at that point. If it's a production instance, remember, in a production instance we've left behind the data, you'll need to get the data in place before launching it. Let's walk through both the packager and extractor now, a little more slowly than we did in the previous session. We'll begin here in the File Explorer so we can get a look at the file structure we'll be working with. This TC21 directory contains a version 2103 instance. We have our images and documents directories directly under TC21. Then here in V21, the app data directory contains our add-on data, and down into V2103, we'll find the add-on application, the Barista framework, and also the supplemental application that you may remember from the add-on Git demo. With that in mind, let's make a couple of packages. Best practice is always to run the packager extractor from the demo or BBJ home instance of add-on and that way you always have the most recent version. I mentioned that it's a standalone utility in that it doesn't require synchronization with Barista, but it does require a Barista environment. So whether you're running a recent version or have copy-pasted the Packager Extractor folder to an older install, you'll run it from the Barista Utilities menu using the custom program launcher. Browse to and select the Packager Extractor program and click Launch. Click the Packager or Extractor tab to get started. We'll begin by making a package for testing use. I'll enter my TC22 directory as the installation base. The installation base will always be the very top level directory. Next, I'll provide the directory within TC22 where Barista is located. The Packager will confirm that the base directory exists and that Barista is where you say it is, and it will show you the path and name it's assigning to the archive. One thing to keep in mind here is that it's a good idea to make sure no one is actually running the instance you're packaging, especially when packaging to include data. Let's go back to the File Explorer and see what we have. We packaged for testing use, so everything from TC22 on down gets archived, and the archive is intuitively placed at that same level, along with the log. The log shows us our runtime options, and then lists path names that the extractor will need to know about. Notice the skip here. When we did the package, we saw a message that it had skipped a file. The Packager detected a path that's outside of TC22, and by design, it won't package anything outside of the installation base. Finally, here at the bottom, it lists the contents of the archive, and you can see that it's listing everything in our TC22 install base. I'll create another package, this time selecting the production use option. We'll supply the install base and Barista location, same as before, and we can see how this differs from our first archive. Back into our TC22 directory, but since we packaged for production use, we aren't copying these top-level files and directories. Instead, we'll drill down into the v2103 directory. This is where Barista and Add-on and our other applications live, and is where a production archive gets created. Looking again at the log, you can see here at the bottom that our images, documents, and application data aren't included in this archive. Given those packages, let's run the extractor. I'm doing all this on the same server, but if I want to extract on a different server, it's just a matter of copying the archive over to that server. There's no need to copy the log because remember, it's also included in the archive. We'll extract the test archive first. We need to supply a new database name. It won't let us use the database name that already exists. Then provide a description. I've already defined a new folder, so I'll find and select that. And then I'll point it to my archive. Since I'm on the same server, I'll just navigate to where the Packager created my archive. The extractor takes a second here to open the archive and get the log, and then it'll confirm where the Barista directory will be after the extraction is done. Back in the File Explorer, we should see that what's now in our ext test directory looks a whole lot like our TC22 instance. On the surface, this looks good, but we can also dig a bit deeper. Going into our addon.syn file, we can see that the extractor has changed path names for us. Likewise, if we look in barista.cfg, we'll see that the paths are correct here too. Switching over to Enterprise Manager, I should have a new database, and I will also find definitions for my stored procedures, as well as a new session-specific class path. My Barista Installation Manager grid also shows the instance we just extracted. Since it's a test instance, including data, I should be able to launch it and find that everything is working. Okay, finally, let's also extract our production instance just to see how it differs. Just like before, I supply a new database name and description, my installation base, and then select my production archive from the v2103 directory underneath TC21. Our production archive didn't include data, so it looks a bit different. We don't have images or documents, and in the v21 directory, we only have a couple of files in the app data folder that were defined as a result of the stored procedure and view definitions getting created. But down in v2103, we'll find Barista and our applications, and like before, path names will have changed in the syn and config files, and the database will be defined, and so on. Without data, this instance isn't ready to run. Remember, the idea here with a production install is that we're getting ready to go live, so you have the upgraded Barista and add-on in place and just need to bring in a fresh copy of your data. You should have a better grasp now of Add-on's Packager Extractor and how to use it, not only during upgrades, but also anytime you need to move or clone an instance of Add-on. We saw both options for packaging, with and without data, reviewed the log, and then extracted and confirmed our new instance is ready to go.